What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab. This is episode 161 of the episodes. A little bit of a hiatus this last week. We got a little behind on some scheduling, but we are back at it again. My name's Rob. We're coming at you with Roll Q beta discussion and mentality. Coming in from a very, very hot and typhoony day over here in Japan, and all the way back in Georgia. It's a nice, sunny, and peachy day for my good old friend Andres Gomez. What's up, Andres? Welcome back.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Yeah, glad we're finally getting this done. And sorry to everyone who's been waiting for the new episode. With Rob moving places and starting his summer camp, we've had a really rough time scheduling between Japan and US schedules, but hopefully we can find a good groove moving on from here. And we can start bringing you these episodes on the reg again, because I do miss talking about this, especially now that Roll Q is here, because I've been playing a ton of Overwatch, dude.
I haven't got a chance to jump right in. We got a little distracted on my end with a couple other things and what have you. But there's just a lot of good games out, and that's never a bad thing to be in place. So that being said, let's talk all about the new Roll Q beta. We're going to talk about some of the quick and dirty updates in case you missed it and you didn't get on PTR, especially for our friends over on the console end, because not only are all of these changes live, but there were a few minute adjustments since the last one. And in addition, Sigma is now in the game. And that's big because a lot of people thought that he wasn't going to be in the game with the Roll Q beta because it's a new season and he's still like a new hero. And usually they have that 2-week lead time. Well, instead, because they're not having a 2-week lead time and then introducing him, they're doing this beta season. They figured because it's not actually ranked, they're going to throw Sigma into the system for you guys to go test out then and there for all platforms. So before we get into all of that further, let's talk about some of our quick updates. This month, game night is on the 30th of August, which is the last Friday of every month, as per usual. We have our sponsors checking out Top Score Solutions over at topscoresolutions.com if you're looking to develop businesses, apps, services, orgs, and all kinds of other content looking for esports-oriented communities and business education and analytics. Please hit up Ben or I Need Peeling in Discord and check out their website for more information. If you guys are looking for more stuff with coaching, Andres has got you covered with our Patreon discussion here.
Absolutely. Guys, coaching is going really good. We've had a lot of you who'd sign up for it. August so far, we haven't heard from a few of you. Hopefully towards the end of the month, we'll get you guys scheduled in. But I've already had a few people reached out and already done a few coaching sessions. I know that Rob just finished doing one right before the show. How did that go?
It went really well. I had my good friend Funhaver did a little bit more of an Orisa challenge, and everything that we discussed last time, he had improved a lot and was really, really encouraged to see some of the things that he'd been doing, starting now to work on less of the ability use and the hero mastery, and now we're kind of transitioning into more macro game understanding, team fights, and shifting, disengaging versus engaging and pushing advantages, and knowing when the fights are won or lost on a dime. So it's really, really fun to see their player progress. I'll be with some other people next week. I got 2 back-to-back next week on Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll see how those go. But I'm excited to see progress with pretty much all of our players out there. It's been exciting to see.
I think that everyone who signed up for a coaching session, at least, I always ask for feedback at the end. Hey, what do you think about this? Did you get anything from it? And all of them have been a resounding yes. This helped a lot. Just having a second perspective to look at my games is really helpful. I just had a really cool coaching session with somebody who was moving in from Counter-Strike. He had been playing Counter-Strike for like 4 years. So his mechanics were actually really good. He had really good tracking, he got good aim, and he brought that from Counter-Strike. But he was still struggling a little bit in Overwatch. And from looking at his gameplay, it was apparent that his main problem wasn't necessarily his mechanics. Those were right on. He was getting the shots in, he was being able to kill people when they were in his face, but it was more his ability usage and when to use ultimates. Um, he had this impression that you use ultimates for the most part to just attack or have a big boom, get some kills over there, and I kind of started opening his mind into maybe using ultimates to counter other abilities and using them around other big pushes, right? When the enemy team puts a lot of resources into one push, you want to kind of match that strength of resources, right? And giving him different ideas of, hey, you can use grab in these situations, right? You don't always have to use it to just set up a kill for your team, but you can use it to counter a Genji blading, for example, who just got nano boosted, and you can trade your ultimate in a 2-for-1 there without even getting a kill, right?
Yeah, the whole ultimate economy and using ultimates in Overwatch is almost a separate like macro mini game that you have to kind of play in your head throughout the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very cool having this conversation with him. And as he was playing, it really opened his mind. He was like, "Oh, I've never thought about ultimates in that way, and that makes so much more sense." And there's so many ways to play the game. There were so many ways to use them, but just having somebody kind of give you a different perspective will open up your mind to different places. So, if you want to partake in this coaching, make sure you sign up for our Patreon. It's the $2.50 tier, which I think is a very affordable tier, especially for all the value that you're getting out of this. I think that is a really cool investment for you and for us too, to get to know you a little bit better and coach you. In fact, I have realized a lot of things that maybe we should be talking on the show just from doing some of
Just
these
from
coaching
coaching,
sessions.
yeah.
So you guys are giving me content over here. This is a win-win.
Speaking of which, today's topic is kind of birthed out of that. So let's get into it. This month is the roll queue, like we had mentioned. So let's jump into a few things. You already mentioned Sigma being live. This patch is for all platforms. This is everything that was shipped from the previous PTR patch, with a few exceptions that are kind of like in the bug fixes section. So we're not really going to cover them. But here's the things to remember. Ultimates will recharge slower from now on, 12%. Brigitte's rework is now in place. That means armor packs are in a set of 3. They come very slowly. They are not instant. They will heal over the course of time. Her ultimate now takes 10% even further on top of that to charge. Her passive healing has increased the total amount, but not the tick rate and not the range and not anything else, but the total amount of healing that comes from the Inspire passive is up. And I believe the whip shot comes out way faster.
Yeah.
Those are the
super
main
fast.
things with Brig to remember. Ash's reload speed is faster overall. Andres, did you want to say something? Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, if you've played Brig since the new patch, I'm sure that you have felt it. She's a completely different hero, and the playstyle that you have to use for her is completely different. That being said, I've already seen some people experiment with her, and I've always seen some open-mindedness from some of the community, like, hey, what if we tried the Brig with something else? And I think that is the right attitude right now. Some people are very close-minded. They're like, Brig sucks. Do not even bring her into my comp games. But the reality is, you have to give it some time. You have to experiment with her a little bit. Even some combinations that you thought are not really good with her, like maybe like Zenyatta Brig. Who knows? Who knows?
Anytime a rework takes place, it's like you have to relearn what you did before, because if you carbon copy what you knew about the hero, it doesn't matter anymore. The other thing that happened with her was her shield got nerfed quite a bit. That's one of the larger changes, from 500 to 200. So you'll need to be a lot less durable when trying to contest targets, and having to make sure that you have enough shield left to use your bash before it gets broken. Ash's fire a reload is way faster now. And by way faster, we mean overall, because it's a small fraction between each bullet. Kind of makes a large change overall. Doomfist now can... This is kind of a complex change, but if you like playing Doomfist, when you shoot his 4 knuckle shots, they reload a little bit differently, kind of like tracer blinks on your screen. But before, you would, if you meleeed, it would actually slow down your reload time.
Yeah, it would interrupt.
But,
like while you were mailing, it wouldn't be reloading, basically.
Right. So they basically removed that. So anytime you're meleeing, your reload speed regeneration rate of those firing coming back is always the same. Hanzo's storm arrows are down to 5 instead of 6. Orisa barrier is now 9 seconds and was 8. Sombra's hack now only lasts 5 seconds, was 6. And EMP has a 0.35 second wind up. So basically, instead of her saying "apagandas las luces" and ripping open the barriers to your tilt, it now takes a little bit longer for her to kind of pull open the gates, as it were.
It takes a little longer for you to tilt now, about 0.1 milliseconds longer.
Now this is pretty significant because sometimes she would be, or most of the time, a lot of the Sombras like to throw translocator in and then use the ability. So if that's happening, you actually have a decent amount of time. That 0.15 seconds longer is actually just enough time for you to kind of wind up those sleep darts and hit her, or actually have the reaction speed to see something before it happens and react. In certain cases, so that's actually quite a big change.
That's the main thing to note about this change. This is not so much as a nerf to any of her abilities, but more of as a window of counterplay given to everybody else. Her abilities are
Right.
still equally powerful, and actually she's still really good in the meta. If you go up against a good Sombra, you will still want to pull your hairs out, and if she's doing the right job, she can really wreck your front line or back line, either one.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, you do get a little bit more counterplay when she's about to ult. If you're a character like McCree, Brigitte, or anyone with a stun, you might be able to deal with it right then and there. Even
Right.
Sigma can do it now. I don't know. His might be really hard to do. You might really have to like telegraph that the Sombra's coming in, because his has
Mm-hmm.
a pretty big cast time. But in any way they can stun her, he'll cancel the ultimate. And especially at pro play, this might be a little bit more interesting, right? It's still a small amount of time that most people won't be able to capitalize on, but the highest tier of players might be able to.
Speaking of Brigitte, there's something that I actually forgot that was listed on the known bugs issues table that they've actually started working on. But when she throws the armor pack, there is a bug right now where sometimes the armor packs, I think all the time, the armor pack doesn't actually have a registration sound that it hit your target. So it's really disorienting if you like playing, or if you need to play for those sounds like a lot of us do, when that armor pack hits the target or when it leaves your hand. And it's really disorienting. And then there's also a visual glitch, I think, on the 1, 2, 3 icon on her armor pack not updating properly. Sometimes that's there. That's also in the known bugs section. I saw that when I was looking through stuff for show notes today, and I almost forgot about it. Next up here is one that we're going to kind of circle back around in a second, which is Symmetra. Symmetra got a complete change on how Teleporter operates now. Teleporter is still a ability and is not as ultimate for her, but it has an indefinite duration. And the cooldown now starts not when it's used, but when it's destroyed because of this change. And the teleporter will actually automatically break if it exceeds the AB distance of 40 meters. And the reason that they put this clause in the reaction is a lot of people like to put the teleporter from A to B to get you to a moving platform. And if the moving platform moves out of the 40-meter range, it will destroy both of the teleporters. So if you want to set the teleporter, try to set them in static locations, because they'll go within, I think it's 25 or 30 meters is the new range now. And it's quite nice. Some people can even use the no-brain teleporter that is really, really good for stalling, where you set it outside of your spawn and you just go a short distance by taking the teleporter to the next spawn. And that's really powerful on certain pushes, especially if they're not contesting and you don't have the long reload times for your respawn.
Yeah, the new tele has been kind of cool. It gets destroyed way less often than you would think. I think
Right.
that people are still used to it having a duration, so they don't bother
They don't
focusing
shoot
it
it as
down.
much.
It's like, oh, it'll go away in its own, but no, it won't. It'll stay there forever. And in certain cases, leaving it up is a huge detriment to your team if you're playing against a Symmetra. If you're playing with a Symmetra, that's great if they're not focusing it. But guys, make sure that if you see the teleporter and you have vision on it and you can fire at it, you do. because if not, that thing is staying there forever. I've seen a lot of Symmetras actually start using it as a shortcut from spawn into where you're
Right.
defending. So you permanently just put it like right outside of spawn, and then it's kind of like this permanent shortcut. Anyone dies, boom, boom, like a quarter of the way
Hmm.
is kind of cut immediately by the Symmetra. Especially useful with Orisas or Roadhogs, very slow moving heroes that take forever to get back. So a cool creative use. But then other cool uses that I've seen is for your backline, sometimes for your healers or for even a bastion, you'll set it in a place so that they can jump from two different angles consistently. And because it stays there forever, it's something that your team can be aware of. And you can tell them, like, hey, Anna, I'm going to leave a tele here so you can always go from high ground to low ground. In low ground, maybe you have full view of your tanks and the choke point. But if that gets breached, you can immediately teleport to high ground. And then you're kind of like already set up in point two in your perfect location. So the tele has some pretty cool applications here, especially it being permanent. More than I thought it would be. So make sure you're killing those teleporters because they're a menace.
There's also something that's really awesome that you'll see in some of the Fresh Nuts trailers, as you will, that they'll use with Diva. Basically, the Diva will start the bomb, and then you can set the telly on it and choose where it wants to go blow up. And then the second you have it about ready to detonate, you can drop the telly, and it goes and deletes 4 people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. Although that one you can do before
Yeah,
this
you could
change.
do it before, but the other thing you can do is shoot, I think there was something with Sigma that you could do where you basically like take the telly and immediately go straight up in the air with your ult. Because you get that vertical momentum when you start using the melody. You don't actually have to choose the target. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or you can use it to reposition and then kind of use the ult right after you go in. It's really good if you can pop it in a surprise area, or if you can set up one of them exposed and one of them hidden. You can kind of start hidden and then go exposed, or start exposed and go hidden. That's also another good tactic for using
that
it.
is one use that I've seen some people do though. And the more it's kind of like that Orisa setup, the more people that are aware of this setup, the more that they can abuse it. But when you're fighting and you're like there in the front line, sometimes the Symmetra will just be standing right behind your front line and will put the teleporter behind their front line. And it's a huge decision that the enemy team has to make, right? Like, do we stop focusing the front line and turn around and kill this tele, which might make us vulnerable to the people who are shooting us from the front. But then if you're a smart hero, you can just take the tele, hit them with an ability from behind real quick, and then tele back into your front line. It's a pretty advanced play. It's pretty risky, but like even Sigma, for example, he can tele with his rock, hit it, and then tele back. And you can do it while casting it too, which is pretty cool. And same with any other heroes. With Anna, you can do it, teleport with the back, nade them, then teleport back in. So a ton of very cool
It's
plays that you can
dirty.
do. Yeah, it's pretty dirty. I've seen ML7 do it to great success, and it looks really cool when you pull it off.
It does. It's a very cool ability. All right, the next thing on the list here is Tracer Bomb is now 350 instead of 300. Basically means you can one-shot those bastions, get out there and delete them, and don't worry about your Pulse Bomb not doing anything inside of those. The next one is Wrecking Ball's Minefield was adjusted, but from the last time we talked about it, where it had the 13 seconds instead of the 10 seconds for the deploy speed, or whatever it was, it's now down to 12. So they kind of rebalanced it again, and then they shipped it with the 12. So that's now on live. The timing of the 0.25 versus the 1 second like readying of the ability, I think that was stayed in. And then the beam weapons are now stronger in how they interact with targets and ramp up properly. So Zarya beams and Symmetra beams feel a lot better.
Those beams feel amazing tracking small targets now. You will get that damage in. There's no more kind of dancing around the beam and dodging a bunch of those ticks. As soon as the beam connects with you, you hit it. So I've been playing a ton of Zarya, and I will say tracking small targets has been a pleasure. You
So
can kill them real
it's
fast.
more of a registration bug fix, if anything. Is that right, Andres? Is kind of like
Basically,
makes
what
it
was
feel better.
happening is the beams had almost like a tick rate. So every so often it would actually deal damage. It wasn't like a constant stream of damage. It was more like if you're holding the beam on top of the person, every few milliseconds the damage would register on them. What was happening with the small targets is that if you cross the beam on top of them in between your ticks, no damage would be taken by them. And especially if we're AD strafing back and forth, and that happened several times in that 1v1, it could feel almost like you were dealing no damage to them. Even though you're dealing maybe a little bit, you're not dealing as much damage as you should have, because the beam actually was on top of them more than the damage that you dealt. Now that's kind of fixed to the point where the damage will register the second that the beam touches them. So there's no more kind of like in between kind of ticks of missed damage. Every time you cross the beam on them, it would register. So a lot more consistent in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple shout outs here to do now that we've kind of concluded that little reminders section. We got a big shout out going to L Mackey, who subscribed with Twitch Prime, and Shazir, who subscribed with Twitch Prime for 12 months. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys want to support us on the live stream, you can do that on twitch.tv/OmnicLab. We are affiliate status there, and you can get one of our cool emotes as well. And I really, really appreciate you guys doing that. If you can make it out, that's great. I know that our schedule is a little nutty, and we're going to try to get that locked in once I get my new schedule from the Board of Education, who's dragging their feet on me, which is annoying to say the least. But we're looking forward to having you guys month to month and week to week on the show for live shows.
Absolutely.
In addition, Andres, let's talk about roll queue, because it's awesome. It's here. Your placement games take less time if you want to go get properly matched in different ranks. And if you want to play different roles, it only takes 5 games each. So the total is longer if you want to get placed in each of them by 5 games. But the drawback, the plus side is if you only want to play one role, you can get in, get out, and you're done with your placements.
Yeah, Roku has been awesome. I was already digging it when he was on the PTR. Actually, this month and the end of last month, I probably played more in the PTR than live servers than anything else.
Absolutely.
It's been such a good addition to the game, and so far I've had a good experience with it. I will say there are a few tricks that you should probably be aware when you're queuing into roll queue. One of them is that for the first time ever, queuing up with somebody who plays your same role is actually a really good idea.
Good.
Yeah, it is. I was placing on my tank, and I found my Reinhardt main tank friend. Really good Reinhardt, and in general main tank player. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of playing main tank. The heroes are amazing. They're incredibly powerful. They just don't fit my playstyle that much. I would rather be playing almost anything else. I like being a very aggressive kind of player. I like being able to sneak in and sometimes find good angles and shots and everything else, which sometimes I can't do with main tanks. And since the main tank role a lot of time is just moving the front line, but guess what? If I can find a good friend that can play that role for me, then I can guarantee that I can play off tank in every one of my matches. And I don't mind playing Zarya, Roadhog, D.Va, sign me up. I'll play those tanks all day long. And then you can even do a tank it with like a Sigma or Orisa or something like that if you want to be obnoxious with the double shields. But it works really well. And I was having a blast yesterday just placing on my tanks, which is something that I wouldn't have done in the previous system, right? Because it was so inconsistent and random. You can't guarantee like I'm gonna play Zarya every game.
Yeah, so you can further limit your pool of specialty in that way if you find a duo queue partner in the same role, because you don't have to worry about other people getting it. You don't have to worry about competing with other people for the stuff that you want. And even if you don't mind competing, you have the ability to adjust with your friend to make those adjustments. So let's say you are a main healer and the other person loves playing off heals, but let's say your Zenyatta is really good and their Moira is probably a little better than yours, and you just want to make that in that specific swap. You can still do that, and it's really, really solid. Another thing that's really great is that within the system, even if you choose different roles to queue together, you can still build specific synergies that you want before you even hit the queue button. So let's say you want to play a specific healer with a specific damage dealing. Let's say you want to do the on a blade combo all the time. Nano blade, nano blade, nano blade. Every game you just want a nano blade all day long. You can do that as long as
Or you
people
want a
are okay with
pharmacy.
giving you that. Yeah, you can pharmacy, you can do that. I will say that one thing that I would highly recommend for my fellow support mains out there is getting another support player to play with is really, really effective for learning the game properly, because your highest priority of healing is always making sure that your other healer doesn't go down. And that's something that the other system didn't really help teach you very well unless you played in a 6 stack. Until you started getting to higher elos, it was super hard to kind of accomplish. So that's something that I've been learning a lot with playing in 6 stack for the last couple months on and off. And the other thing is that I wanted to talk about with Andres is the mentality shift that we can make. There's some things being thrown around on pretty much every forum, Discord, YouTube comment, whatever you have, about people getting upset that people that are in their games are on their off rolls from a different thing and throwing, if that makes sense. So, for example, let's say Andres is a Masters player and I am a low platinum player, and Andres's tank is really bad. Let's just say that his tank
All right,
went really
Rob.
bad. But my DPS is not really great either. So I'm kind of playing one of my main 2 roles in low platinum, and Andres is playing his least favored role in that same position. And so what happens is people get frustrated. Not taking responsibility for is a big one, and the other one is that they'll just accuse him of playing his non-strong strength of role to play at a lower bracket with something that he's not as strong in, and accusing them of throwing. It's a very, very common narrative right now, and I kind of want to debunk that a little bit.
So I think at least the beginning, right now in Roll Q Beta, we're gonna have a period of a little bit of confusion and a little bit of chaos. We're splitting into different roles. A lot of people I've noticed actually don't play some of the other roles. Some of the friends and people I play with for a long time, I've noticed some of them have never touched one of the roles. They're incredibly good at one, but like pretty mediocre at the other one. And that's going to happen, I think, all across the board. And especially as people are placing in their individual roles, there's going to be a discrepancy, right? You might find yourself playing maybe a little bit above your level or maybe a little bit below your level in certain games. And I think the matchmaker is going to have a little bit of a shift. Some people have been reporting that the shift hasn't been that bad. Some people have been reporting that, whoa, I ended up in this weird ass place. I'm not playing with the people I should be playing. Some people have been saying, hey, there's people at my rank that seem to be playing at a lower rank. And I think that for now, that's going to happen a little bit until everyone kind of like finds their own place. But eventually, we're going to get a lot more normalized rules. And the thing about it is that if you're queuing as tank and then you get matched with a DPS that's around that rank as well, then that's what you get, right? Like that's your tank role. Those are the DPSs that you're gonna get. Those are the supports that you're gonna get. Even if it's somebody who is a master's tank and maybe you queue up in plat with him and he's playing DPS, that's just the way it goes. That's just the level that you guys are playing.
That's just how it goes. You heard it here first from Andres. You get the bad rank. That's how it goes.
Well, not necessarily like the bad rank, but like some people might have huge SRs in certain roles and really low ones on other roles.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the way it's going to go. That's people.
Quick deviation because of the bits. We got 1,000 bits over here from Savory Parsnips, which is a fantastic username, saying that he's first time in a long time listener, but just really, really glad that he could catch us on live stream. Thanks so much for the bits. We think that someone in the chat's also asking, do you think that the MMR for the beta should/will carry over to season 18? We have been confirmed that multiple times that it will. The MMR has been tracked for over 3 to 6 months before beta had even released and had been tracked into that. So you
Yeah,
can take it to the bank that your MMR has been tracked even through beta.
that's kind of the whole point of this Roku beta, honestly. That's
It's a
why they
really good
didn't make it.
question.
That's why they didn't make it into a full competitive season. Is because they know there's gonna be an adjustment period, and here we are. This is the adjustment period. This Roku beta and this mini season that we have right now is your chance to find where you belong in each of one of your ranks. The more that you play, the more you'll hone in into your actual rank in one of those. So I'd actually recommend that you use this season. Don't worry too much about it. Play those games. Play more than the placement games. If you can play 10 games in each role, or even better, 20 games in each role before the season is over,
Right.
you'll be a little bit closer to what you are. And that is the whole purpose of this season. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't know this was a little bit of a problem and everyone needs a little
Mm-hmm.
tuning there.
And just keep in mind, because this is a beta, they're tracking the hidden matchmaking rating, or the hidden MMR system. They're not going to display what your ranks were during the beta.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just something that's they're tracking and they're observing and they're testing. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
that's a good thing to note. This won't appear as like season 19 or what, I can't even remember what season we're in.
17.5 beta. Like they're not going to
Yeah.
display that.
Yeah, that's not gonna be there like some of your other seasons. So even more of a reason to kind of take it as a trial season and just go ham.
Right, right. So the other thing that's really cool about this system that we can start talking through is the new freedom for people not to really have to have, hey, I have my tank account. Let's get on my tank account. Let's get on my DPS only account. Let's get on my main account. Let's get on this account. The people that have these multitudes of accounts can actually work on displaying how good they are in different roles specifically if they want to be the quote unquote flex god. You know what I mean? People that love doing that sort of thing can actually start showing that that's in fact what they are, and they're really good at every role on one account. So the other side of the coin is those people that really want to practice don't have to feel obligated to go buy a separate account so that they're not accused of like, hey, you're throwing on tank because you don't have any hours. It's like, well, I just really want to play this to practice, and I don't need people flaming me in all my games telling me this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's up to you, the person, and what you want to do with your account and your roles. I know that
Mm-hmm.
some people have like their serious role, like this is where I'm gonna play the most serious that I can, and then they have their fun role, and that's not their main role. They're probably a little bit lower in SR than their main role, and that one is the one that they kind of just go in to train, practice, do some other stuff. And I think that is really cool, right? That now you can have that within the same account, where that used to be separate accounts, right? Like, oh, I have a main tank account, which I have super high. And then when I want to go play Widowmaker, I'll go on my separate account so that I don't have to deal with the shame at my rank, right? Now on
Yeah.
your same account, you can do the same. You can play Reinhardt at 3,800 and then Widowmaker at gold, and you're good.
Now, I'm really curious. This is more for you guys, the listeners out there. Please let us know in Discord or emails or Patreon messages. Just let us know. But I am very curious as to how people are approaching the new system with regards to mentality and ladder anxiety. Because for me, the way I'm looking at this is I have my one role that I'm really comfortable playing. And I really think that that's my role, right? That's my DPS or my healing account. Those two things on the same role, I feel okay of playing those two. And even if they're, 200, 300 SR different, I still feel pretty good about that. But some people I talked to just this week were talking about how their main role is 200 above their second best role, and that being a big problem for them. So I don't know if there is a discrepancy with how people are interpreting plus or minus 200 SR as being a really big skill gap or a skill jump, or maybe a lot of rank to gain or lose. I'm not sure if that's something that's in your vernacular. Like, please let us know. I'm trying to seeing if we can maybe make a new mentality video about talking through that. Because for me, if I'm gonna go play DPS or I'm gonna go play tank, I'm like really encouraged to go play without my friends now. I'm actually excited to go play solo queue, and I'm a player that doesn't want to play solo ever. Like I've kind of divulged into this. If I don't have 6 people to play, why play? you know?
No, I totally agree with you there. And for a while, it was kind of like that for me too, where if we could get a six deck together or we had a group of friends, like, oh, yes, I'll go play Overwatch
We play. Yeah.
because then you could guarantee to play with the stuff that you wanted to play, right? Like, oh yeah, I get
Hmm.
to play DPS, or oh, I'll get to just play off tank or something. Like, no problem. And even at the days
Right.
that I had to like fill other roles, it still felt fine because I knew that the other roles would be taken care of by my friends. So even those days, it was still consistent. And then the days I had to solo, it was more of a, do I really want to go in the queue right now? Like, I just don't know what I'm gonna get. Like, I really feel like I want to play Hanzo right now, but
Do you
I'm
want to gamble
probably
your
gonna end up
SR
on like
away?
Mercy or something if we want to like
Yeah.
make this composition work. Um, but yeah, now that's not the case. And even though I said earlier that queuing with a partner on your same role or somebody that can do a synergy with is really good, solo queuing is also like immensely better than it used to be, especially for roles where I don't mind playing a more of a variety. Like in support and in damage, I'm not as picky with who I pick. In tank, I'm a little bit more, just mainly because I don't like being the main tank. I'd rather be the off tank. So in that role, I like duo queuing. But in the damage and the support role, honestly, I like most of the heroes. If I'm playing damage and somebody goes Widowmaker, well, it's okay. I'll just go Hanzo. Somebody goes Hanzo and I want to go Hanzo, it's okay. I'll go Tracer or McCree or May or even Symmetra in this meta is working out pretty good. And I don't mind playing any of those roles. Same in the support category. So now solo queuing is super easy for me in those roles. Oh, I know the team is going to be set. We have consistent composition, and I get to play whatever the other healer or whatever the other damage player doesn't want to play. We're good to go.
I'm just excited to honestly practice different roles, and that I don't know if the narrative is going to change where people are like blaming, like with the blame shifting there, like when you're in your solo queue games, for example.
The thing about
But
it is that I think that the blame is gonna stop a lot because there's no switching, right? Like you can't do anything now they're in the game. If you're in support, you're in support. So even if you don't like what your DPS are doing, then maybe it's up to you to pick up the slack, but on your role, right? There's no more let me
yeah,
get on
exactly.
DPS, right? Like you're not doing anything, let me get on DPS. There's no more of that.
Yeah, I do feel like it's not something that may adjust immediately because of the beta, you know what I mean? And people kind of like getting back into the swing of everything kind of like leveling out with the variants. But once we kind of get through this weird funk in the first like, glorified month plus beta, I think we're gonna get this key thing's gonna kind of settle really well. It's one of those things where it's really great right away, and then it'll kind of feel really weird for a bit, and then it'll kind of settle and feel really, really good. And then I'm
Now,
also really excited for the next patch changes that come in because I'm really kind of curious how the new balance is going to kind of shift over the course of the next year. It's going to
yeah,
be really interesting.
those are definitely coming. We'll definitely see some balance changes. And don't get me wrong, I think that it's not like role queue is going to eliminate all of the toxicity in the game or people
Yeah.
complaining about other roles. I think that, people shifting the blame onto other people is going to be something that happens forever and ever as long as
Yeah.
humankind exists. I think that sometimes that is or nature is just easier to deal with if we just blame somebody else than blame ourselves or those close to us. Um, but that being said, I think that it does help with a lot of the inconsistencies and a lot of the frustrations that were added to this game, right? Teamwork's still gonna be necessary. If you're not playing as a team and you're kind of ignoring everyone else, there's going to be conflict. If you're being toxic or just obnoxious in general, there's probably gonna be conflict. But at least now that conflict is going to exist in an organized environment, which in general is gonna make less fights arise. Right? You're not fighting for roles anymore. You're not trying to decide with randoms what you're gonna go in like 40 seconds that you have to do all this. So I don't know. Overall, the game seems super consistent. I played till really late the other day solo for the first time in a long time because it felt good, right? I was like, I'm just gonna go support, and I played support for like 2 hours, just by myself, and it felt nice. I was like, okay, yeah, I don't consider myself a support player, but I'm having a
This is
blast.
what we're doing.
Yeah, this is what I'm signing up for, so I know this is what I'm getting.
Yeah, there's just something to do with knowing what you're getting yourself into is being really freeing in a lot of ways, and kind of just saying, look, I'm committing to this by hitting the button, and it kind of just gives you this different kind of peace of mind that's really quite nice when playing Overwatch.
You know what I thought it was really funny though? I saw this picture of people in bronze, and DPS had the shortest queues out of all of the roles. Support had the longest, and tank had the second longest, and DPS being the shortest. Now, this might just be the time of day or that particular moment, but I thought it was super interesting how at different ranks, some of the different roles might be different. And I started thinking about it, and it sort of makes sense, right? At a lower rank, for example, tanks, they have more leniency, right? They have bigger health pools. They require less precise aim. They require more just like general aim. And same with the supports, right? You can heal yourself. You have ways to keep yourself alive. But some of the damage heroes, they have none of that, right? They're super vulnerable, easy to kill, and they require a lot of precise aim and movement to be able to get anything out of them. So it makes sense that some of the lower players would shy away from them and just choose to go for the tank and healer. But I don't know, just a little curious tidbit I'm
Yeah,
throwing
I
out over
did
here.
get somebody saying that in our Discord just the other day. I thought that was really odd, but it's really it's really interesting. I'm kind of curious as to what it'll pan out to be long term at all the different ranks, like if it'll shift or
As it
if
goes
it
up,
just
it
ends
seems
up
like
being that way.
tank is the
Tank.
scarcest. Just because at the higher ranks you get, there's so much pressure on you as the main tank, I
Yeah,
feel. And
you have to set the pace.
yeah, and so much stuff gets targeted at you too. Not only do you have the pressure of your team, you have the pressure of the enemy team, and you have to keep a cool head and all this stuff that is happening. Is one of the reasons I rather not play main tank. I really respect you if you are a good main tank, because man, it's a tough job.
It's definitely for sure. I'm kind of curious as to what'll happen because I don't know what tanks I'm gonna play if I get in there, and if I have to play off tank and I have to play Zarya, I'm just gonna have to learn it because my Zarya is not as good as most people. I can't charge my ult very well. I'm not very good at like weaving bubbles. I know the principles and I know how to coach people on Zarya, but I just can't do it. I'm just
It's a different thing, right? Sometimes
yeah,
knowing what to do, and then another thing doing it, because that's when the muscle memory comes in, right?
yeah,
You have to
yeah.
be ready to react, not just only like no, like oh that's what it is, but move your fingers and be like
Hmm.
this is it at right the exact times. Because the thing with Zarya is if you bubble a second later, you've lost maybe half of the energy and half of the focus fire that was coming to them stops.
Yeah,
Just because you bubble like a slightly later than it. Talking
right.
about Zarya though, she's a great off tank to be playing right now. With a lot of the shields that are happening
Sigma coming in.
and Sigma coming in, Zarya can eat Sigma. Actually, sometimes going Symmetra and Zarya can be a good alternative to just kind of eat that front line out really fast. Both of them are really lethal against Sigma because you can get past his shield, and once you get past his shield, he has no way of blocking damage against you. Especially if you're high charge, you can get really aggressive with him, pop your shield to buy you just enough time to focus him down, and he has nothing to do, right? Like his little void matrix thing that he does won't block your beam. Um, and you hurt him a lot. He doesn't have a lot of health.
I've even seen people just run dive against Sigma. They're just like sick and tired of seeing all these barriers. They're just like, I'm just gonna jump past them and we're just gonna go in. We'll see how it goes.
I have some people seen dive and try it out. The thing about dive is that some of the heroes that are popular right now can hurt dive quite a bit. Like Mora gets run a lot, May gets run a lot too nowadays, and you can really stop dive with May, and you don't get a lot of things to focus on with Moira, and especially with Genji. The Moira is always just so annoying to deal with.
Yeah. Speaking of Moira, the changes that allowed her to basically fade out of everything, that got completely changed. I don't know if we mentioned that last week, but she cannot do that. You cannot fade out of anything and everything anymore. You have to do it preemptively. You're still stuck in grabs. You're still stuck in stuns. Everything is still going to get you stuck, but you can fade before or after it. Just keep that in mind. There is some interesting stuff with like playing things too. Like I didn't list this in here, but Reinhardt's got that 30% knockback reduction. So that's actually quite a big change for allowing you to play Reinhardt and take a lot of the hate. It still doesn't mean anything in the face of Sombra. So if you are seeing Sombra and you're playing Reinhardt, sorry, it doesn't really do much against getting hacked. But they did nerf the hack a little bit and includes the hack time for EMP. The other thing too that's been thrown around on us is that Moira is just somehow with this new system and these new balance changes, Moira is just relevant. She's actually like doing things with compositions again.
Moira's getting played a lot because I think there's been
Yeah.
kind of like this reversion to more brawly comps with the rise of Reaper and Mei and being able to kind of like get in there in your face. And Moira just kind of fits really well into that. Plus, she's not vulnerable to the halt hook combo. She tends to be a little bit more free in that sense. And I've been surprised that heroes like Reinhardt, for example, as in competitive play, they actually haven't fallen out of favor as much. And I think in part is because Sigma is getting played. And I think that Reinhardt, if you play him the right way and you know how to approach a Sigma, you can be a huge threat to the Sigma himself. Especially if you have a Zarya of your own, like Ryan and Zarya can really push a Sigma really far behind because he can't really just stand his ground like another Reinhardt would be able to. And on top of that, Sigma, especially in the ladder, has kind of put a halt on the hook. If you catch my drift there, because his shield is so effective at just like blocking the Roadhog. It's kind of like the same idea as the Mei, but now you have it integrated into your main tank, right? You just put the barrier up. They're not hooking you anymore. So I don't know. It's been a weird shift in tanks. Even though I thought the Orisa Roadhog were gonna be a little bit more dominant in the meta, I haven't seen as much of them. I've seen a little bit of Reinhardt getting played, and Sigma obviously getting played a lot just because he's the flavor of the month at this point.
There's also the thing that you and PvP talked about, as well as a lot of the YouTubers for your Overwatch and wow, I blanked on the other channel. Your Overwatch and Overwatch Central. They're talking a lot about how the new design decisions the last couple times have kind of said no to the main tank off tank setup, or the main this off this setup with regards to support as well. They're kind of just like, these things are just different, and there's not really a main or an off. They're just so different that you kind of just have to figure out what works and what synergizes with Sigma, because like he just has a totally different tool set of counters and strengths that he can bring to the table, right? Like he has a barrier that's really, really powerful that he can shoot anywhere he wants. You got a problem with a Widowmaker, you just put a barrier in front of her if she just grappled there. If you got a problem with an ulting Zarya or an ulting Pharah, you can just put the barrier right in front of her face and she kills herself. You can put it in front of a Diva Bomb in a pinch if you need to. You got all these other things that you basically just have the ability to counter by virtue of doing that. And then on top of that, even though he's really slow and really easy to shoot and doesn't have any armor, damage mitigation, his primary fire does a lot of damage.
He actually does. If you know how to hit your shots and you're hitting them constantly, he puts an incredible amount of pressure. And the thing about him is that he can like soft corner check. He's really hard to hide around a corner from Sigma because the little orbs still
the black
explode.
holes bounce.
Yeah, they bounce and they explode at the very end. Is in a fairly large area. So if you're just hiding like slightly around a corner, he's still hitting you with those. And it comes with a lot of pressure, right? You can't play too safe around the Sigma unless you're completely out of his range. And that's kind of like the sweet spot for him, right? You don't want to be melee right in front of somebody, but you want to be at the range of your orbs, which have a pretty medium range, I would say.
And the other thing is that Sigma is honestly my favorite tank now. Like he's the only tank that I really like playing. He has the ability to use that corner checking kind of to his advantage to land skill shots, right? Like if your target is pretty grounded, let's say Reinhardt, for example, or Zarya, and you're really struggling with like the arcing of the shot from hitting properly, I've been just aiming it at the feet of the target and popping them up a little bit. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
like helps a lot with other heroes shooting them because it has have that little bit of displacement, kind of like when you use Helix Rocket on Soldier, for example. The other thing I've been able to do is if a barrier is sitting in front of me and they're like backing up against a wall, you can shoot it above them into the wall and it will bounce directly onto them from behind, so you can still damage them and kill people from behind barriers if you're just thinking geometrically. And maybe this comes a little bit with playing a lot of Junkrat early on in my career of Overwatch, as well as playing a lot of Scatter Arrow Hanzo. That may be, but he's really fun if you kind of think out of the box and playing him a little bit differently. Don't really think of him as like a main tank. Don't really think of him as an off tank. Just think of him as being different, and you're going to be in a really good place when you want to go try to play him.
Yeah, because honestly, he sometimes fits in both places. Like you can play him with an Orisa, or you can play him with a Zarya, which technically one is a main tank and the other one's an off tank. And you can kind of like edge in between those roles of being like the frontliner and then
Yeah.
just being like the support tank, which is just maybe like blocking off angles. Like with the Orisa, he's really nice because he can put the shield in places the Orisa can't put her shield. So to like block a Pharah or like block a Widowmaker that's maybe like moved to the side and now has an angle on your Orisa shield, you're like, nope, let me cover that blind spot for my Orisa. I'm good to go. Even stronger bunker, right?
Hmm.
Or you can play as a main tank, just advancing the line forward. Playing him like a Rhine would be, and hopefully coupled with a hero that can kind of give him a little bit of edge and extra power, like Zarya or Diva that can protect him. He doesn't seem to synergize as much with Roadhog. Like you could pull it off, I'm pretty sure, but he doesn't just seem to have as much kind of like work together kind of thing as he does with
Diva
some of
seems
the
okay.
others. Yeah, Diva can protect him, and especially the Matrix is really nice for him. And having that double Matrix can actually eat a lot of things, and make it really annoying for the enemy team.
It's a lot of denial.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that's kind of intriguing to me, like that I've been able to hear a lot about this one thing in particular, but maybe we should talk a little bit about the commonality of people having problems at lower tiers to mid tiers with the double bunker or the double barriers with Orisa and Sigma being so prevalent that a lot of players aren't really quite sure how to beat it or what to play into it because it's so
Yeah,
new and there's a lot of shields. So
that's a
maybe
good
we should talk
question.
about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of double shields right now, right? Even if it's Orisa Sigma or Ryan Sigma, now you got a few options there. And before the Orisa Ryan double shield, I think it was never a good strategy just because Orisa and Ryan both want to be positioned in completely opposite places from one another. And even though
Hmm.
you get double shield, either you're double shielding way in the back where the Ryan is useless and is literally just a guy holding a
Facing the wrong
shield.
way.
Yeah. Or you're too far forward where the Orisa doesn't really want to be, or you're completely different in different positions, separated apart, kind of like making your bunker less strong. But with these two other combinations, like the Rhine Sigma works kind of nice because they can both be sort of in the front line and be okay, and be quite effective. With the Rhine Orisa, or sorry, the Sigma Orisa, it's sort of the same thing, right? Like Sigma can still deal some damage at medium range. It still has a rock. He can still kind of hang out back with her and not be completely useless while having his shield being able to be located anywhere. So now double shield actually becomes a little bit appealing. I got one word for you guys: Symmetra. You're having a lot of trouble with double shield, especially with Sigma. Symmetra is a great option. You will eat through those shields really fast, especially because you'll charge your beam really fast just firing at the shield. And then against Sigma, you're incredibly useful. Other ways to deal with this is, of course, Sombra is a great way to disable certain heroes. Sigma struggles a lot against Sombra. EMP completely erases those shields. So if you're focusing at least in first in farming your EMP and then opening it wide open for your team, that's another option right there. May can be incredibly good because you can isolate some of the front line from the back line. You just wall right behind the Orisa. And even though she has a shield, now you can rush her kind of safely, right? Because she can back out. Her healers don't have um, vision of her, and your Ryan can maybe like pin her or anything else. And same with the Sigma, you can do the same with him. Uh,
You can
or
outrange Sigma, I think, is the big thing.
mhm.
Like there's the double barriers is a big problem. So you do have your typical answers to that sort of thing, especially with the new ones like Andres has been highlighting. You still have your Junkrats, your Hanzos with storm arrows. You have your McCree's just spamming into the shield to break them down if you really need to just do barrier damage as a possibility. But the other ones would be the new buff to Tracer's damage is actually quite nice. Um, not focusing the barriers and not focusing the tanks is another thing you can do. You can kind of keep splitting damage and just being a nuisance on Tracer and Genji. You can just constantly reposition on Widowmaker and take pot shots and pressure. If you're not able to kill stuff, it's still pretty good. Pharmacy is still really solid. If they're not like actively trying to hit you and you have a lot of verticality in your map, you can get a shoot on the above side instead of like worrying about the horizontal barriers. If Sigma's not really paying attention to you or they don't really have an answer for you, whatever can't hit you. That's also really, really good options.
the
Just
the
keep
only thing
thinking.
the only thing I
Yeah,
would recommend is try to pick one strategy. Either you go for massive shield break, which you will need. So you get things like Hanzo, Symmetra, Roadhog, or Rissa, even a Baptiste can work, right?
mm,
That can just help
yeah,
you just focus on a Zenyatta, maybe just like everyone
sure.
focus the shields, break him real fast, allow our Symmetra to just plow through them and all this damage to kind of like roll through them. Or you can go through the route of ignoring the shield. Go Tracer, Hanzo, Widowmaker, Genji, Wrecking Ball, Moira, Mercy. All of the heroes that have high mobility and don't require you to play the front line, right? Now you don't have to pay attention to the shield. Now you can go directly to their back line. You can have your Wrecking Ball kind of booping them around, creating opportunities for your Hanzo, your Widowmaker. But at that point, the shield is not your concern, right? It's more finding angles in which you can get the damage in and maybe get that one shot kill on the enemy, that one dive, right? And get him out of the way, get out, rinse and repeat. But one of the worst things you can do against a double shield is do a half-ass measure, right? Like have an Orisa and a Roadhog focusing the front line, but then your DPS are like a Hanzo and a Tracer, which are only trying to find angles and are not shooting at the shield, because that is the quickest way to lose a fight or lose that point immediately. You won't have enough manpower to break the shields, and you won't have enough distraction that your backline heroes might be able to get a pick, right? In fact, it's going to be quite difficult for them because more than likely their backline is going to be untouched. They're going to be receiving no damage from your front line, and they're going to have every cooldown available in the book to deal with you as you try to find that edge. So one or the other, but don't split it.
Now, there's two things that I'll say here that I've been learning about this as well on my end, playing with Andres and playing with other friends. Is the first is the easiest one to remember, is if the team has one or two players switching to do something differently. Like, okay, we're gonna try to do this to adjust, or I'm gonna switch to this hero and I'm gonna switch to this hero so that we can do this. The entire team needs to run their brains through that same scenario and say, am I playing something that synergizes with that again? Or do I need to make a switch to also help that adjustment? Because if a team can make a decision together to make a shift and not go kind of 50-50 on it, then you can really start turning the tide and say, okay, well, if we're going to do this, then maybe I should go Lucio to help us get there. Or if they're going to do this, then maybe I need to play Widowmaker so that I can get on a vertical high ground to kind of shoot at an off angle to really disrupt them. Or maybe I need to play Sombra and disrupt this one problem to help my team get in the back line. These type of decisions. Or even just the other side where Andres was talking about integrating Symmetra or switching to Azaria, switching to Wrecking Ball, stuff like that on the tank side. There's always something you can switch to, even though you're playing in specific roles. It doesn't make hero switches bad anymore. You just still need to do it as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other is that when you end up having to make an adjustment, it's also important to note if maybe they're having to make if your team needs an adjustment or doesn't need an adjustment based off of something that's outside of your control. So this is kind of hard to illustrate, and this is going to come up more when you're not playing with a bunch of friends. You're playing in your solo queue with a bunch of 2-2-2, and you got one other person in your role, and they're playing this one thing. This guy's like only going to play Ashe, or this guy's only going to play Widowmaker or something like that. It's really important for you to kind of know what they're doing and paying attention to what your team is doing with their hero picks, and trying to not just play brainlessly the one hero that you know in that role. This is your opportunity to kind of learn that role and try to find something that flexes together with that. And there's this balancing act you have to do with your skill, and also what can you use together with your team to build the synergy. You kind of have to find that balancing act to help you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will probably be a good way to kind of wrap up this discussion,
Sure.
because Overwatch really relies on the synergies and the ways that you're using as a cumulative your abilities, your cooldowns, and how you're approaching the game with your team and against the enemy team. Like we've said before, even Counter-Strike pros or people that are like incredibly gifted at their mechanical skills sometimes are not doing as hot in Overwatch because the mechanical skills are only there for you to execute when needed. But the rest of the game is all based on you reading cooldowns, you paying attention to visual and audio cues in the game, and then you use your mechanical skills to react to those things and to be able to make a play. But this game really revolves around cooldown the most. And the faster you can wrap your idea or your head around that idea, the better. Work around the cooldowns, work around the positioning, base your decisions off of that, and then use your mechanics to execute and to get the damage in on those moments when you are able to react. And especially nowadays with role queue, you're going to have to learn to do that within your role. Like Rob was saying, find what are the cooldowns or the heroes that are making your team struggle and why. And within your role, try to find something that works well against those things and enables your team to do the things that you want to do as a team. And I know that's super broad and kind of, yeah, like broad brush over here advice, but it's the best that we can give you without getting super into details.
There's also a little bit of value, to be sure, if you are not trying to concern yourself with that. For example, you're learning that hero for the first time, or you're learning that role for the first time, and you're like, well, I don't really know what that synergy is. That's totally okay. You can start learning what things you should be doing on the heroes that you need to be by playing that one hero over and over and over and over again, and figuring out what's good and what's bad and what's maybe not the greatest, but you're really comfortable on this, and this is what you're really good at, and so your skill will outweigh the differential of what you should be playing, because of your skill bracket between those two isn't really there. I've had that come up a lot, where it's like, I really should be playing Lucio here, but I'm not really that like comfortable with him, or I really want to play this hero, but my friend that I'm playing with in the same role is really good at that one, so I should let them take it and take the lower one, for examples. All right, let's finish up our special thanks columns here with diamond sponsorships on patreon.com/Omnic Lab. Thanks to our top sponsors: Top Score Solutions, Refire, Meow Meow, Shazir, Shepard, Crimson Fail, Brenda D, Christoplaya, and Tragic Zach, alongside of brand new patrons this week/this month. We have Infinity OW, Bruce P, Patrick W, Josh L, and Chloe L. Thank you all for your new subs on the Patreon page. Lots of 250s in this category, as well as new like patrons in general, and some returners. I recognize some of these names. It's really glad to have you guys here. Super pumped that you're also signing up for the coaching. Please let us know what works for you, and we'll try to get that in. It's been real busy for both of us, and we're trying to get that going for you. No new iTunes reviews this week, but they are helping. So please send in those iTunes reviews if you can. Do it there. It is the best place to support the show for free besides listening. and catching the live shows and hanging out in the Discord, do all those things. We have all those links for you and more on our website at omniclab.com/links. And believe it or not, I never hardly plug this. We have merch. If you look up here on the live stream, that's a mug. I have one of those. Andres and I both bought t-shirts from the original set. We updated our logos on the merch, so it's the nicer one. You can get hoodies for winter if you want to prep early. You can get tanks. There's I don't know, some kind of tote bag if you want a tote bag for your shoes. I don't know. Gym shoes, gym clothes, you can do that. Your groceries. Whatever, man. Get a tote bag for your whatever, man bag, you know? Andres, where can people find you on the interwebs?
If you want to find me, you can do so over on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games.
If you want to find me, I'm the tag Not Rob on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to find my stream, it's at Not Rob May. I'm gonna try doing some more streams lately now that I have a better internet IP and ISP and all that. We'll see if that works out for us. My wife just got Minecraft today and has been playing all day
Nice.
together because it's been really fun. And I just started getting into Teamfight Tactics this week.
Yeah, I've been getting into Teamfight Tactics too. It's kind of itching that strategy itch.
Yeah,
scratching
and
the
there's a
strategy
new
itch and that
Hearthstone expansion too. So there's all kinds of fun stuff to be playing these days, and we have good friends in the business of High Noon Podcast. Also, I've heard their two folks are going hard on the TFT train as well. So we might have to go hang out with them and do some joint streams. But that's going to do it for episode 161 about Rollqueue. Please, this is one of the few shows where we ask for a lot of feedback. Dump it in the podcast questions if they're questions. Dump it in Overwatch discussions. You want to talk about it in our Discord. Send us DMs if you're too shy. That's great. Just let us know what you think about Rollqueue. Let us know what you think about your mentality and how you're going about ladder anxiety with this new setup. Talk to us and more throughout this week before we come back next week. We will see you then. Don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist.
Also, sorry, before we close
Oh,
out,
go ahead.
If you're a Reinhardt main around Diamond or Masters, hit me up.
Hook up. He's got the Zarya hookups, boys. All right, we'll see you next week. Don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. Adios. Matane.